Hey, Jason Wood here, the VA loan guy and host of the Armed and Ready podcast. Today we have a really exciting episode for you. Come on and take a look.
And welcome to another episode of the Armed and Ready podcast. I'm your host, Jason Wood, the VA loan guy, and we have an exceptional guest with us today, Army veteran and Sergeant Major Kyle Lamb. Kyle, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, so Kyle spent some time, and we'll get into his story in the Army, has a great civilian job going now, and also has a podcast. So we've got a lot of neat things that we get to talk about today. So Kyle, as I do with all of my guests on the show, tell me a little bit about your military career, and even like what was the deciding factor to make you join the military? You know, what convinced you to make that decision? And tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, I grew up as I guess you'd call me a half cowboy, half dirt farmer in South Dakota. So it wasn't really a struggle. At least I didn't think it was a struggle at the time. I just thought that's what every farmer rancher did. And I loved the horse side of it. I rodeoed. I met my wife through doing some horse judging and things like that. And then I felt like I'm probably too lazy to be a farmer. I better join the military or do something else. And I always liked adventure. So the military kind of spoke to me as a place to go. And I had a few family members that had been in the military. And I thought, well, you know, that might be it. My wife, we weren't married at the time. She said, well, I don't really want you to go in the military. And I said, okay, well, I won't do it then. And she goes, well, a couple months later, she said, so you won't go in the military if I tell you not to? And I said, no, I'm in love. I'm going to be with you, whatever. And she said, well, if you marry me before you go, then join the military if you want to do that. So we got married when we were 18 years old.
Wow.
And we've been married for 34 years now. And got 2 kids, 2 grandkids. We just, you know, that's a rare thing. Normally when I speak to military groups, I have to tell them, I go, yeah, I've been married 34 years. And they all kind of look at me and I go, to the same woman. And that's, you know, in the military, it can kind of be rough. But anyway, 18 years old, I joined the Army. I end up with the 82nd Airborne, was a paratrooper. I started out as a commo guy in an infantry outfit. And I really didn't know what I was getting into, but once I actually got my feet on the ground in the military, I loved it. You know, there were some ups and downs as you go to combat or lose your buddies or whatever. But
sure,
by and large, being in the military was just an unbelievable experience for me. And it gave me an opportunity to get out of South Dakota. Not that that's a bad place to be, but for a guy like me, it was a great opportunity to go and travel the world. I've been places where most people will never go, see things that most people would never see. And I've worked with people I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people that if you worked with 2 or 3 people like that in your lifetime, you'd be really blessed. And I worked with just a bunch of really good men and women in uniform. And now that I'm out, I still kind of gravitate to the military and law enforcement guys. I've got a lot of friends that weren't military, but I end up a lot of times gravitating back to that. So yeah, so I went from 82nd to Special Forces. I was telling you before we started that I was in Arabic language school when Saddam invaded the first time. So I went straight to Desert Shield, Desert Storm with 5th Special Forces Group, or Green Beret. That's what some people would call us. Then I tried out for an Army Special Mission Unit at Fort Bragg. I made that and went there, and I spent all but a year until I retired at that Special Mission Unit. I did have 1 year where I went out to Fort Lewis, Washington, which is now Fort Lewis McChord.
Right.
I went out there with 1st Special Forces Group and met, great people. And I guess that's, if people out there that are military, they understand that, but maybe some people that haven't and they're kind of on the edge. And joining the military, it's just, you can do whatever you want to do. And just as in life, it's all kind of what you make it by how hard you want to work. And, there's so many options. If you don't, if you want to have a really good job, then I'd say go be in the Air Force, right? Because in the Air Force, it's going to be more like having it's going to be a little bit closer to a job than going in, say, the Army. If you end up as an infantry guy or something like that, it's not really like anything you would do in the civilian world. Same thing with Marine Corps. Navy, I really don't know a ton about the Navy. I've served with some of the Navy SEAL dudes, but I don't know a ton about the Navy. But I can't imagine being on a boat with like 5,000 people. So I think I would skip that. But I had a lot of interface. You were at the Air Force, right?
Right.
I had a lot of interface with the special ops guys in the Air Force, and there's some of my favorite operators were CCT and pararescue guys, because they went through this whole pipeline to get where they're going. So they were very, very talented and super, super smart individuals. And they went on every target that we went on with our special mission unit. We had Air Force guys with us, because they're the guys that are going to call in the helicopters when we need them, or gunships and things like that. So I got some Air Force dudes that are near and dear to my heart. Of course, we give the Air Force a bunch of crap, because that's what you do if you're in the military. But
right.
I still do miss being in the military after all those years. And the first year was a little rough when I got out, because you realize that in the civilian world, not everybody has the same mission focus. Whereas in the military, most of that mission focus is the same. In the civilian world, you kind of have to search for a group of people that will get on your team and have that same kind of focus. And you may have to look other places for that focus. You might have to look at your church or just some dudes that you hang out with when you're not at work or whatever. But military is it's just a great experience.
Yeah. So did you do 20 years? I
did 21 and some change.
Okay.
Yep. So I retired as an E9 or sergeant major there. And when I first got out, I got a little bit of money for disability. And then later on that got reevaluated. It was kind of funny, because when I got my evaluation, and that's one of the things, if you're talking to people that are in the military fixing to get out, what I would tell them is, make sure that VA process, that you go through that while you're in the Army, because when you get out, it's super difficult to do it once you're out of the military. So going to try to get those VA benefits rolling, because when I was lucky that I got a relook and got bumped up in my percentage. And it was interesting, because the first time they did it, all the stuff that actually bothered me, I didn't get paid for. It was just all the normal stuff, the stuff that everybody gets, that's what I got. But the stuff that really bothered me, my back and my eye and some other injuries I've had, didn't get a penny for that. So then once I got it reevaluated, I was able to do a little bit better. And that had, some guys say, oh, I don't worry about it. I don't care. Well, you should care, because when you get out, those percentages count for a lot of different things. One, it could be for insurance that you might have to pay, get to pay a lower rate. Depending on that, you might have to pay or get to pay less taxes in your state. Tennessee is really good about that. There's no state income tax. And there's also one of your vehicles, you can get the taxes taken off of that. Your hunting and fishing licenses, I think I paid $5 or $6 for my lifetime license in Tennessee. Wow. So there's a lot of benefits that, people need to know about these benefits, and I try to tell folks, just get that done while you're still in the military.
Yeah. Well, there's also, bringing it back to my business, there's a discount for getting on your VA loan if you have a rating, right?
Right.
So that funding fee from the VA is waived for life. So no matter how many VA loans you do, you never have to pay that fee, which, can be substantial. I mean, because they enacted that Navy Blue Water Act last summer, the VA funding fees all went up to take care of, those Korea War and those Vietnam era veterans and get them some more health care, but they had to pay for it somehow, right? So they increased the VA funding fee. And so for people that don't have a disability rating, that VA funding fee on your subsequent use, so your second or third time using the VA loan, if you're buying a house, is 3.6%.
Oh, wow.
So that stacks up to a lot of cash, and being able to have that waived. The other thing is, that the disability money is like pooled funds from the government. So it's already allocated. And so by raising your hand and getting your rating and stuff like that, I've talked to some guys who are like, I don't really feel like I need it. And, let's save it, let someone else have it and stuff like that. Well, it's a bucket of money that's available, and you're just taking your deserved piece out of it. And it's not like they're going to go hit up taxpayers for more of it. It's already allocated. There's plenty. there's usually left over every year, and it's just going to waste.
Yeah, and if you don't need it, put it in the bank. I mean, put it in a bank
Right.
account. It's better than putting money in the stock market. It's way better than that. And that's what we've been doing too. We both, my wife and I, we do a lot of different stuff. I've got a TV show that was on Outdoor Channel for a while, and now it's all on Amazon Prime. You know, that's a little bit of income. Writing books, that's a little bit of income. Our business, you know, Viking Tactics is the business my wife and I started. That's predominantly our income, but all of that adds up, but stuff comes and goes. And I think, like you said, you know, that bucket of money's there. Just put it away. If you don't need it, don't go out and overspend just because you got it. I would say put that money away for a rainy day, because we're all going to have a rainy day at some time. And I know for my wife and I, it's amazing when you start to look at your bank account and see, oh, wow, we've actually, because when we got out of the military, we didn't have any money. And now we've been able to put some of that away. So when it's time for us to buy something, you know, if you need to get a loan, that's awesome. If you don't need to get a loan, that's awesome too, if you can avoid that. But anyway.
Yeah, well, I think they started to make that process a little more streamlined, in the sense now when guys, you know, they're about 6 months from getting out, I think they do now start them through some of that review process and things to get that kick started. Just I think with some of the revisions they've done to the VA kind of healthcare system in the last couple of years, noticed that, you know, a lot of their backlog and the wait times and things like that, they're kind of jamming up the system a little bit. There's a portion of that were people who are out of the military and then starting to do their claims and their benefit for that, for disability, when if they had started it earlier with like active duty doctors on base and stuff like that, it can kind of thin out that waiting period. I think that was one way they helped kind of improve the system a little.
Right.
And I've heard it's pretty good. So tell us, so you got out, and did you immediately start your own business into Viking Tactics, or what did you do when you got out?
So we had actually started our business before I got out. We were selling a few products, and there were products I had designed, you know, tactical products. Our flagship product was a sling. And so the Viking Tactics sling, we're selling a few of those. And then I started to book classes for when I was going to retire. So by the time I got out of the military, I had 42 weeks of shooting classes booked. So when I said, all right, hasta la pasta, I'm out of here, the next day I was on the road and I was teaching classes. Now 42 weeks on the range, I can tell you that's a little too much. I could barely hold a cup of coffee by the end of that because I had tendonitis so bad in my arm. But what it did, and this is what I would tell everybody getting out of the military, man, hit it like a drunk driver. I mean, get out there and go, because when you first get out of the military, you're fresh, you're ready to do it. Get out there and build up your business when you can, especially if it's your own business. And if you're working for somebody else, I mean, I would recommend doing that too. But for us, you know, 42 weeks, I made a great paycheck that year for working 42 weeks on the range. It adds up on as far as time, and it's great income. Ever since that first year, I've tried to do less and less classes, simply because my body can't stand that. Our classes are very physical, especially with the military guys. You go train with a bunch of Marines, they don't care who you are, how old you are. If you got a broken leg, it's gonna be physical. So trying to keep up with these young guys, it's something that, you know, I've got to do that every week that I'm on the range. So I backed off the classes a little bit. Our business went from, my wife quit teaching school year before I got out because our daughter had graduated from high school. So she started running the business, and then the business has kind of done a flip-flop. So it started out where 95% of our business was training and 5% was product. And now it's just the opposite, where we got 95% product, 5% training or service. You know, and that's the other thing that you need to think about if you're starting a business. If you're starting a service business, service means you got to be there. You got to be standing tall and be right there every day. And that's not the case with product. So we launched it. It's been a huge blessing for us. We do a ton of business. The COVID has been awesome for us because I've been traveling less and we've been selling more.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I've been doing, I forge knives and tomahawks and stuff. And I've been doing more of that. It's kind of a new passion of mine, something I can do, getting ready for hunting season coming up. There's a lot of fun things about actually being home. And I would say that some folks in the military, you're used to that nomad lifestyle. It does take a while to get over that, because I look out the window and I go, man, I should be doing something today. I should be out. I should be in some part of the world hunting or whatever. I've hunted all of that. I told you about the TV show. If you go and check that out, it's called Viking Chronicles, and it follows me around the world hunting and doing tactical stuff. So everything from fishing in the Amazon, retracing some of the steps of Teddy Roosevelt, to hunting in New Zealand or Africa or Montana, Wyoming. And we show everything. We show the highs and then we show the lows. So that was a fun experience for us. The books, if people feel like they got a story to tell, my books are instructional. My first 2 books were shooting books, and my 3rd book is called Leadership in the Shadows. And it's, as you would guess, a leadership book. That was a fun process because we also did the Leadership in the Shadows as an audio book. And we all think, well, it's pretty easy to sit down and read a book by a microphone. That's one of the hardest things I've ever done. To sit down and try to read and make it sound the way that you want it to sound. So my son sat in the studio with me, and the guy running the sound, my son would give me the nod if it was good. If not, I'd start over. And some of those pages I read quite a few times to get it the way that we needed it. But yeah, there's
That's
just so much.
interesting because audiobooks are quite the rave, but I never really thought about it until you mentioned like the time that goes into making your book an audio book. I mean, the hours you must have spent just reading it must have been huge.
Well, my wife, she goes, are you ready to do this audio book? And I said, of course I'm ready. I wrote the book. You know what I mean? I'm good. And we were actually in bed, and she goes, do you have that book on your iPad? I said, yeah, that's how I'm going to read it for this. She goes, okay, read a chapter to me. So I read a chapter to her and I finish, and she goes, okay. And then she played it back. She recorded me.
Oh.
She played it back, and I'm like, I sound terrible. This is bad, And she goes, yeah, you got to practice. It's like anything in life. You can't just go out and do it. When I do presentations, I do Leadership in the Shadow presentations and combat mindset training, and then some leadership and motivational stuff for businesses. And you got to rehearse that. So just like reading a book, if you're going to read your own book, you still have to put the time in. And man, I read that whole book a couple of times out loud to myself, just to make sure I kind of knew the flow and everything. And still I had to sit there with my son for, I think it took us like 5 days, not full days, but 5 days in the studio to get the whole book recorded. And it was a challenge, but one of the biggest feedbacks that we've got, we didn't launch the audiobook when we first put the book out. We just put the audiobook out about 6 or 8 months ago. And the best, well, not the best, but the feedback that we get is we really like it because you're the one reading it. And I noticed that too, when I can pick up a book and it's the author's actually reading it, especially if it's something like that, where it's a story. Mine is kind of a partial war story, a partial law enforcement story, a partial, big business story, and all about leadership. And it's my story. So it only makes sense that I'd be the guy telling it.
Yeah, no, I've heard some audiobooks, and it's definitely not the author reading it. And sometimes it's hard, at least for me, sometimes it's hard to stay engaged with that,
Yeah.
Where I'm almost like, okay, forget it. I'll just read the book at this point, So that's really cool. Yeah, I've never thought about. Tell me about the TV show. How did that come to be? Like, did you go seeking like to do this show, or did you get found, or how did that work?
I leave kind of a vapor trail of smoke and destruction behind me, and I guess they thought that would be fun to see the debauchery there. And I shouldn't say debauchery because that implies that it's illegal. Most of the stuff we do is completely legal. It's just really fun, and we end up getting banged up or whatever. So the way it started, I got asked to go on a show. It's been quite a few years ago. They asked me to come on an episode of Guns and Ammo TV, which is on the Sportsman's Channel, and it's a great show. But it's it's not for everybody, you know, it's not the way that it was filmed, and the format wasn't this big epic high quality thing. They had some really cool slow-mo and all that, but it just wasn't the big epic shots and all that. So I went on there and I filmed, and that night we were out eating chow, and this guy asked me, he said, Jim Bequette, who was the producer of that show, he said, "So what other shows are you on?" I said, "I'm not on any shows." He goes, "You're not on any TV shows?" "Well, you're natural in front of the camera." And I said, "Well, I've done a lot of video work because we've released a line of DVDs that shooting instruction and tactical stuff. And I kind of figured out a long time ago, one, I like to public speak because it makes me nervous. I like to be nervous. I like to be challenged. I like it. I like to be put under the gun like that." So he goes, "Well, you're pretty good. You know, we ought to see about having you come on the show." Okay, whatever, man. I mean, I got a full-time job, but you know, if you want to do it, we'll talk and I'll see what you pay. Because for me, it wasn't about exposure, because I already had enough exposure with our business. So it was more about, if I do this, can we make some money at it?
Right.
So he told me what the day rate would be. They brought me on the show. And I believe at first when I went on the show, I was just doing some segments. And then after I did that for maybe 6 months, he came to me and he goes, "We want to make you the host of the show." And I'm like, "What are you going to do with this other guy?" And he goes, "Well, he's going to host too. You're going to both host the shows, and that way we can split up the season and it'll make it a little bit easier on both of you guys." So I worked with a guy named Craig Boddington on this show, and he's been around the shooting industry, and he's former Marine guy, officer, good dude. We get along very well, and it was a very good experience. Well, while this was going on, we had filmed a Street Fighter DVD, which is fighting in and around vehicles and how to proper use of cover and what happens when you shoot a windshield with a bullet and things like that.
Okay.
And the guys that filmed that, they said, "We ought to do a show with you." And I'm like, "Whatever, man." And they go, "No, we really ought to film a show with you and do some stuff." So they decided, "Yeah, we want to do this." And I said, "Well, I'm not paying for this. I don't need a TV show. I got a job." And they go, "No, we'll pay for it. And then we'll pay you as the guy, you know?" And so the first thing we filmed, and I didn't get paid for it, we went on a hog hunt from helicopters in Texas. And
Awesome.
we killed exactly 0 hogs from the helicopter. Never saw a single pig from the helicopter. Total waste of time. And I came back and I'm like, "Well, there you go. There's your TV. I don't know what you're going to do with this." So then it just kind of stayed rolling like that. And then one day the folks at Outdoor Channel approached this producer and said, "We need a guy that can do something that's kind of high energy and kind of an adventure show and hunting and fishing, or, you know, shooting, or what do you think?" And he goes, "Oh, I got the guy. This guy, Kyle Lamb, will do this thing." And he does, his just day-to-day life is an adventure. So I do a lot of archery hunting. So I like to hunt archery elk, go out west a lot and hunt, and any kind of hunting that's legal or open, I'm game for it. Everything from, one of my favorite hunts that I've ever been on is we have carpenter bees in Tennessee, and taking a tennis racket and trying to track down carpenter bees before they drill holes in the side of your building. It sounds stupid, but it's a good hunt. It's a lot of fun. Or we went out to Eastern Oregon and we killed 2,600 jackrabbits in a couple days. 2,600 with me and a SWAT team. The SWAT team invited me to go out there. Well, we filmed all that, and people just loved it because, you know, now that's a success because we're out there helping this farmer to kill these jackrabbits because they're eating all the alfalfa that the cows should be eating, and they're drinking the water that the cows should be drinking. Then we go to Africa and we talk about, you know, what's going on over there and see the real side of Africa, not a lot of the fake. You know, you see everything in the news is, "Oh, we got to stop killing lions and we got to stop doing this in Africa." And you go over there and they're like, "Well, if you stop hunting in Africa, the Africans are just going to kill all the lions because then they're of no value because they don't like lions. Lions kill people." You know what I mean? So they're big fans of them. We hunted down in New Zealand, you know, seeing what they've got cooking down there, going into the Amazon. That was a great trip. So we just, the Outdoor Channel, we went on the show. We did that. And the first year that I was on that network, we won the top shooting show.
Oh, that's great.
So that was kind of cool. And, get to go up on stage and get this award. And it was kind of a cool event. And then we did it the next year. And then now what we've done is we've stopped doing it on the Outdoor Channel because it's super expensive to be on TV. Whereas putting stuff on Amazon Prime, this stuff has all been aired before, so we own it. So we put it on Amazon Prime, or I should say the producer did. And now you all can just go and watch it for free. You can watch all this craziness that we do and check it out. There was another show I was on too, Peterson's Hunting Adventures. I did that because a friend of mine had passed away and they needed somebody to fill in for him. So I went on a couple hunts on that show. That was a lot of fun too. But I will tell you this, people that think, oh, I want to get a TV show, be careful what you ask for, because being on a TV show is a lot of work. It's not a lot of pay unless you really, really, really get famous. And if you really, really get famous, I think your life is probably going to start sucking pretty bad.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I made a fair paycheck doing that. And here's the thing. I don't want them to hear this, but I was going to go on those adventures anyway. So why not have the camera follow me? And the thing is, the camera guys that went with me were amazing dudes. They were guys that go film the Olympics. They were guys that have, one of the guys, he was the director of photography when they did the big, when the Japanese they filmed them killing a bunch of, I think it was dolphins. And was the director of photography for that. He ended up winning an Academy Award or something for that whole deal. And I mean, they're the best people in the business out there, and they're running around in the mountains with a camera. So they got a $30,000, $40,000 camera, sometimes more than that. One of the cameras that we use to catch bullets flying through the air, some of those cameras are a couple $100,000. So they're lugging that stuff through the mountains, not that high speed camera, but it's really fun to see how that's done, see behind the scenes and doing drone work. And we had a great time.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And you have a podcast going as well, right?
Yeah, I do a podcast called the Team VTAC podcast. We just get people that I'm hanging out with and get them on there. So we've had everything from, well, sad to say, this past week, Charlie Daniels passed away.
Yeah.
Charlie Daniels was on my podcast. I became friends with his manager, and then I became friends with Charlie Daniels. So I was able to have him on the podcast. We've had a lot of hunters, shooters, blacksmiths, people that run firearms companies. We've had MMA fighters, Black Rifle Coffee. I'm sure you've heard of Black Rifle Coffee. So
yeah.
Evan Hafer, the owner of that company, is a very good friend of mine. So we've had him on a couple times. Tom Davin, who used to be the CEO of 511 Tactical, he was he was like the COO of Panda Express. He was high in the hierarchy of Taco Bell, on the board of Oakley. Just did a lot of things. Well, when he left 511, he went to Black Rifle Coffee as well, and now he's trying to set up some of their franchises and stuff that they're doing. And that's a guy that you really should have on too. Evan Hafer, great guy, great story about, being a military dude and getting out. He didn't retire. He actually got out, went to work for the agency, and then stopped doing that. And he started Black Rifle Coffee, and they're crushing it. I mean,
I'd love to have them on. I love following them. I have their coffee on auto ship to my house. So
yeah.
I'm a fan.
Yeah. Are you on their exclusive program?
I don't know.
Okay. They do that shipment to your house, but I just got on the exclusive program, and they actually do a Berserker blend that has a big Viking on it for our company. And they sell that. And so they did this exclusive one, and I thought, I'll try that out. Oh my goodness. I mean, I love their coffee, but this exclusive, every couple of weeks you get a pound. You don't get as much as you do with the other program, but it's like this special coffee. And it's the first one I got, it had a picture of a bear in an astronaut uniform with the American flag. And I'm like, what is this? Flying Bear or something they called that coffee. It was just amazing. But yeah, Evan, you should have him on because he's a wealth of knowledge as a businessman, and he's a great guy, great family dude, as well as Matt Best and JT. They're the other two owners of Black Rifle Coffee. Matt's a former Army Ranger, and JT's a former Special Ops Air Force guy. And
awesome.
They're just great guys. They're a little crude sometimes, but they're
that's all right. They're funny. I mean, I watch their videos. They crack me up.
Yeah, they do a great job. But yeah, hanging out with them. We're actually going to go hunting this fall. We're going to go hunt some cow elk in Wyoming. Evan and I are going to go hunt together, so that'll be fun. And we'll probably do a little bit of filming or something there. But yeah, and there, you know, there's a lot of other guys out there. There's a guy that retired not that many years ago. His name is Jack Carr. He's a former SEAL that is a writer now, and he started, his first book was Terminal List. Amazing. I mean, just an amazing book. And now he's working on his fourth book as we speak. And each one of these books, he's just crushing it. And he's become like a household name if you're into reading, you know, Brad Thor and Brad Taylor, another friend of mine who's a former military officer. He was in the Army with me. He's really crushing it. Brad Thor, who he wasn't in the military, but he did some other stuff. He's a neighbor of mine here. And then, of course, like I said, Jack Carr, another guy. Definitely, you know, whatever your passion is, when you get out of the military, man, you can do whatever you want to do. So if you want to write, you want to roast coffee, you want to go travel the world and hunt and have somebody film it, I'm sure you can convince somebody to follow you around with a camera.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and then the other thing too that I tell a lot of guys, sometimes you just got to get a regular job. You know, there's great jobs working at Lowe's or wherever. You know, you don't have to be out and have some big fancy title. You can just do what a lot of people do in America, and they pay pretty well too. You know, become a welder, become a plumber. I mean, welders and plumbers, they crush.
They clean up.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, they do
absolutely.
really well.
Yeah, and you can get the military will pay for that schooling. Go and do it. I mean, you don't have to go to college. You can go to a trade school and do the same thing. So anyway, I guess you already know all that, but you know, the people out there that are watching, hopefully they'll, you know, get motivated. Do whatever you want to do. If you want to make a bunch of money, I would say become a welder. If you want to brew coffee, then do it. That's probably a little harder road to hoe than being a welder, but you know, there's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, the sky's the limit. I think, you know, you're kind of mentioning, you know, it's really just having that purpose and surrounding your people with that same kind of drive. Right. And you can do it. One of the cool things about corporate America now versus, you know, maybe 15, 20 years ago is they're much more apt to go after that former military person.
Yeah.
Because now I think the rest of the civilian world has finally caught on to like how well the military trains their people, right? You know, to be good workers and, you know, and follow orders well and do what they're told and you know, cheer on that mission of whatever it might be, the corporate mission of the company. Right. And so they build in us kind of that drive and determination for those things. And it's really nice that, you know, the companies like Lowe's you mentioned and others are now, I mean, they seek out veterans and rightfully so. I mean, I think, you know, 9 times out of 10, it's going to make the company better. Getting good people.
I always tell the guys that are getting out now, a lot of them think that they're going to walk up and say, do you know who I am? Give me a lot of money because I was this special ops guy. Now, if you're a SEAL, yeah, that's going to work. But as an Army special ops guy, and we're supposed to be the quiet professionals, we don't get automatically paid, you know, and we don't have the fancy hairdos that SEAL guys have either. But what I would say to these guys is don't tell them how good you are. Show them how good you are. Because if you go in there and start talking smack, that just makes all of us look bad. Go in there, be a quiet professional, and use everything the military taught you. Use that military decision-making process. Use, you know, whatever your planning process. How would you plan an operation? It's the same way that you would plan a business venture, except for in a business venture, the worst thing that can happen is you might lose some money. In a combat mission, people get killed. So if you take it as serious as that combat mission, you'll be able to quickly show them what your capabilities are. And if you were in the Army for 5 years, you've got it. Or I shouldn't say Army, in the military. If you were in there for 5 years, you have some institutional knowledge that you may not know that you have. If you're in for 10 years, I absolutely guarantee that you can lead all those people from the front. If you've been in 15 or 20 years, now we got to be careful that you haven't got lazy because you got into that elevated ranking position and you quit doing your job and you think that you're going to do that on the civilian side. Hey, I got a rude awakening for you. When you get out in the real world, you have to work to get paid. And you know that. I mean, you got to bust your butt to go out and make some money.
Yeah. I don't get a salary or a regular paycheck. It's, you eat what you kill. And, it's running my own business, doing mortgages, no different than, the Black Rifle Coffee guys or you. I mean, you're running your own shop. So, you don't have to show up to work, but your paycheck will reflect you not showing up, right? I mean, you got to get after it. You got to work hard. Absolutely. The question I had for you is, is there anything like from your special ops days, any cool stories or anything that stick in your mind that you could share with us?
Well, I was on a mission one time in Mogadishu, Somalia, and they made a movie about it called Black Hawk Down. So that mission kind of is always the first mission that comes to mind when I think of things that have happened. What that did for me, I was a young soldier at the time. I was in the unit, get over there. We're trying to catch this terrorist dude. He's a thug. And the whole planning process, we kind of thought we knew what we were doing. And some of the old timers, they were pretty good at that planning process. But some of us younger guys, we hadn't done that enough to get be as effective as those guys were. So we had to work on the planning. And I think that's probably the lesson learned. Yeah, you got to know how to shoot. We definitely needed to know how to shoot. We definitely needed to have our medical skills. I was at the first crash site, Super 6-1. That helicopter was shot down and both the pilots were killed. That was the bird I was on and had infilled from. And then after I was on the ground, it had gotten shot down. So we knew we were going to fight our way to that, protect that aircraft until we could get people in there to get the bodies of the pilots out, because one of the pilots was pinned inside that wreckage. So that's shoot, move, and communicate to get there. But right away when we get there, there was a young Ranger, Jamie Smith, who was shot high in his femoral artery. He's the first guy that I had to work on. And that medical training that we had was paramount. Shooting is awesome. And you need to do that. And driving is awesome, or walking is awesome, because you're going to do that on every mission you go on. But if you want to have mission success, you better have your contingency planning squared away. And what is contingency planning? Contingency plans are for when you fail. So every mission that we went on, we planned on failing. And a lot of guys don't like to hear that, but that's the truth. A failure is when one of your guys gets shot. A success is when you have a contingency plan and you start providing first aid and you know what you're doing. You know how to put direct pressure on that wound. You know how to apply a tourniquet. Back in those days, we didn't even carry tourniquets. Think about that. That's 1993. And people said, oh, you don't want to carry a tourniquet. Now every soldier carries one, normally 2 or 3 with them. So those lessons learned, I think that battle provided a lot of lessons learned that are still being used on the battlefield. There's other crazy stuff that's happened to me since on the other tours I've done to Iraq. I've never been to Afghanistan. I've still got hope that somehow I'll find a way to get over there to do something. But in Iraq, that was a bit of a different mission than Mogadishu. Not every single person wanted to kill us in Iraq. Most of Iraq, I spent most of my time up there. And when you look at the people in Mosul, it's not all, angry Muslim terrorists that want to kill you. There's also some decent Muslims, and there's also there used to be a big group of Christians up there too. Now most of them have left since ISIS was in there, but you had to treat those missions a bit different because not everybody in the street was trying to kill you. So you couldn't just go in with this overwhelming force and mow down everything in front of you, because they're not all bad. You could have innocent women and children and dads or whatever there too. So, yeah, it's, I don't know. I think every mission you go on, you learn something. I did figure out in Somalia, I'm a Christian, so I was praying, Lord, get me through this. But more than that, don't let me be a coward. I want to, die like a man here. Well, somehow I made it through that fight. And then later on, when I got to Iraq, as a leader, your self-preservation kind of changes. At least it did for me. I quit worrying so much about myself because I knew that I was going to be protected by my vehicle or by the guys around me or whatever. But what I was praying for then was that my guys didn't get banged up,
Right.
And, you're doing dangerous stuff, IEDs everywhere and bad guys wanting to shoot at you. It's the for real deal. So we had an interesting time there. I'll tell you Iraq war story real quick.
Okay.
I kind of like war stories that end happily. So this one will end pretty happily. We went out and we did I'll call it a night of the long knives, where we went out and hit a bunch of different buildings, rolled up a bunch of different people, bring them back. We kind of sort through to make sure who's bad, who's not. And then we've got the mission to take the good people back. So we go out to the airfield, standing there with the medic, and I'm like, okay, what's the plan here? He goes, all right, Sergeant Major, here's what we're going to do. We're going to load them in the helicopter, strap them in, put the safety straps on. We're going to close the doors, which we never did. And then we're going to fire up the bird, fly them out there, land, open the doors, let them all go to their houses, and hopefully they don't hate Americans after this. Roger that. Sounds good. So one of the soldiers comes walking up to me. He goes, hey, we need to give these guys earplugs, which didn't even dawn on me. Like,
yeah,
helicopters are freaking loud,
Yeah, very loud.
So sitting in the, sitting underneath that engine of a UH-60, it's loud. And we've all got our Peltor hearing protection on, so we're good. So the guy goes, okay, I got it. So he runs and he gets one of those big candy jars of earplugs, the colored earplugs.
Right.
And he goes down the line and he's giving every person 2 earplugs. And I'm like, okay, I kind of feel good, like, hey, we did the right thing. The SF guys are supposed to take care of the locals. We took care of them. We gave them earplugs. And then I look down the line and they're all doing this. They ate all the earplugs.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
They all ate the earplugs. And what, if anybody ever asked me, did you give those people earplugs? Yes, we did. And then I would stop right there. I wouldn't tell them that these guys ate them. But I'm like, so what do you do now? Now you've got 20 people standing in there and they've just swallowed earplugs. What do you tell them, So there you go. There's your Iraq war story. It's not all bad. There were some bad things that happened, but funny things like that too happen. And we always tried to not take ourselves too serious when we weren't out on a mission, because there's plenty of time to be serious,
Yeah, there is. And you need that emotional and that mental break once in a while.
Oh yeah.
So you can be sharp when it's time to turn it on. You can flip it on. You just can't be on all the time. Even in the professional world, the business world, you just can't be on all the time. There's no glory in never turning it off, because that's where you hit burnout, right? And you can become inefficient.
Yeah, on the other side of that, though, I also think as a business owner, people need to realize that I agree with you on that. You need to know how to tune it down and go fishing or play with your kids or do whatever that, remember that your kids are more important than any job you can ever have. Any job. The only job that could come close to that would be being a preacher or something. You might have a higher responsibility there, but other than that, your children should be your highest responsibility, and then your grandkids or whatever. But as a business owner, dude, it's on you. Like you said, you got to get motivated. You got to get up and get out there and start shaking a tree to make it happen, because the fruit's not going to fall out by you just standing there hoping that it falls on your head. And if you're blessed enough to do something that you love to do, and maybe that's, you look at what I do, I'm kind of scatological. I'm all over the map. I've got the same attention span as a squirrel. So I go do a TV show. I write a book. I do DVDs. I've got a business. I design products. I do consulting, do a podcast. I do all this stuff. Why am I all over the map? Because I like all those things. Now I'm forging knives and forging tomahawks and building, I've built guns before, custom 1911s. Well, now I'm building a flintlock rifle because it's this work of art. And whatever you can do to keep, and for me, it's, if I keep my hands busy, that's important. But more importantly than that is keeping your brain busy. And
Correct.
especially for military people that have some issues, post-traumatic stress, TBI, those aren't made up. That's legit stuff. And it's all right here. And I mean, it's not just psychologically, it's physiological as well, but it's in your brain. So continuing to have that mission and focus on stuff that takes your mind away from that. I'll give you an example. I was having a really bad bunch of headaches, and I went to the doctor because my wife was like, you're going to the doctor because you may have something wrong with your brain, you know? So take me in there. Doctor says, how do you sleep? And I said, oh, I sleep great. My wife goes, no, he doesn't sleep very good at all. So he goes, well, I'm going to give you something to help you sleep. So he gives me this prescription. I go and I fill a prescription, and I come home and I look up what the prescription is. It's an antidepressant. There's no way I was going to take that pill. You would have had to hold a gun to my head to get me to take that pill. Now, I'm not telling you that antidepressants are bad. I'm just saying that I'm not going to take it unless there's something that tells me I really need to take that. So what's going to help, you know, what can I do other than the antidepressant? My wife goes, you're not going to take that? No problem. You're taking something to help you sleep. So I started taking Advil PM. So it helps you with your aches and pains, but it also has something in there to let you relax a little bit to go to sleep. You can get Z-Quil, you know, without doing something that is addictive. My headache started to go away. Well, then I had a brain, what do they call it? They stick you in the pipe there, the MRI scheduled. I went to take that MRI and they got ready to put me in that tube. I couldn't do it. I've been in all kinds of tight spaces. I've never been claustrophobic. I couldn't go in that stupid thing.
Really?
Yeah, and I told the guy, I said, I just can't do it. And it was just, this guy was just amazing. This guy was about a foot taller than me, this big black dude, just as nice a man as you could ever ask for. He's like, hey man, you've been through a lot. You don't have to do this if you don't want to do it. And I'm like, thanks, I can't do it. So I walked out of there and I was crushed, because in my whole life, everything that I've ever attacked, I've been able to complete. Maybe, you know, I got set back or whatever, but I'd never been so scared that I couldn't do something. And that just jacked me up. So a couple weeks later, I'm up doing some training, and I ran into a guy that I served with in Mogadishu, Somalia. He was a ranger and I was with the unit. We got to talk and he goes, well, how you been? I said, I've been having some headaches. He goes, yeah, you know, they went to check out my neck. This guy had been shot a few times. And he says, I went in to do that and went in to do an MRI and it didn't go so well. And I said, oh dude, let me tell you about my MRI. So I just told him what happened. And he's like, that's exactly what happened to me.
Okay.
So now here's how I took that, because I want to make myself feel good. I felt like, okay, I couldn't do it because 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be talking to this guy and it'll be a good way for me to say I couldn't do it either and make him feel better. Or was it him that was doing that for me? So the bottom line is I've had several guys now, veterans, that have told me that they've had trouble going in that MRI machine. And all of us have talked about it so that we can figure out how to then go back and conquer that fear. So just think about that. Here I am, I'm this SF dude. I've done everything on the planet and I'm scared of going into a stupid MRI. What do you think about somebody that has post-traumatic stress? What's going on in their head? TBI, what's going on? These people have headaches that they just can't get away from, or they're having issues. You know, they can't remember what this is called. A what? Finally, they remember it's called a pen, you know, because they can't get that cognitive side of their brain to work.
Right.
The way I finally kicked that is I went in there and the doctor, he gave me something to relax me, gave that to me to take the next time I went in. So as I'm driving in that day to take my MRI, my wife is driving and she says, she holds that pill up and she goes, You going to take this pill so that you can get through this MRI? Or are you just going to be a man? And I had to sit there. Here's, think about that. Around your family, you want to be the man. You want to be the dad. You want to be the grandpa or whatever it is. And she called me out. And I'm like, I wanted that Valium or whatever it was. I really wanted it because I knew that would put me down a notch so I could go in there and have no problem. And I'm like, no, I don't want that pill. So we walked in that MRI and that dude walks out. It's the same guy. And I look up at him and I said, I am so happy to see you. And he goes, yeah, I bet. And I said, dude, I've been thinking about you every day for the last month. And he's like, that's kind of weird. And I said, I have been because you were so nice to me. And today I'm going to get in there and I'm going to conquer this. So I go in there. My wife stood right beside me. They laid me down on that table. And the thing that I didn't like was they had to put, since they were doing my brain, they had to put this face thing on. And I got a big head. That thing was smushing against my beard and my face. So you're like caged in on this thing. And they caged me in and I'm like, whew. And my wife stayed right there by my feet. She had her hand on my leg the whole time. And they put me in that MRI thing and they started going. Once I got in there, I was fine. It was just the act of getting in there. So I guess, the moral of that story is, we're going to have, there's going to be things that are going to be difficult. And for me, it made me look at other guys around me and gals around me that have post-traumatic stress, TBI, and start to think, okay, if they're having issues like this, what can I do to help them? Because it's real. Because I couldn't go in that stupid thing. Now, if I went in there today, I don't know. I think I could do it, but you don't know until it really happens. I'm not scared of the dark. I'm not scared of crawling through culverts or anything like that. But whatever it was about that MRI, kind of got to me. So I guess my point there is, get the help you need if you need it. We talked to Dylan a little bit before we got going with the show. And there's a place down in Texas, Warrior's Heart, that I'm with the board. A friend of mine started Warrior's Heart, him and a couple other folks. And what they do is they treat post-traumatic stress and drug and alcohol addiction. And what's cool about it is when you roll in there, it's just us. So it's law enforcement, military, and first responders. Nobody else. So, you were in the Air Force and I was in the Army. Well, guess what? We got something in common. And I can sit across the circle from you and look you in the eye and I can call you out because I know exactly what you did in the Air Force and you know exactly what I did in the Army. But if you just got some dude over there that's a drug dealer or whatever, that he or she doesn't understand what you've been through, it just disrupts that whole circuit. With Warrior's Heart, what it does is it gets everybody, all those excuses are gone. You're around your own kind. You can say anything you want to say. And they do, trust me, they say whatever they want to say. And we've been able to stop some of the suicides. There's still some that we haven't been able to save, but it's a great facility. Tom Spooner is the guy that I know that I served with that kind of got that up and running with the help of a couple other folks. And, if guys need help, go, and we've never turned anybody away. So go to the Warrior's Heart web page or go to Viking Tactics, hit contact us, send us an email. We will get you squared away. If you have insurance, that'll help. If you don't have insurance, don't worry about it. We'll make it work. My wife and I have also started a 501c3 called Stay in the Fight Foundation. And ours isn't for military and law enforcement. It's for any human being. But we've been helping a few folks through our organization as well, which feels pretty good when somebody's in need and you can fiscally help them. And with our organization, like I said, you don't have to be law enforcement or military, but you do have to have a job. And, we're going to pay a bill for you. We're going to pay the bill. We're not going to give you the money and trust you with it. We're going to go pay that bill. But it's been good. We've done everything from helping some ladies that are behind on rent, that are working moms, to an SF friend of mine that he never asked for this, but he had one of the supplements he needed for his TBI injury, the Army wouldn't pay for. So we were able to just pay for that, no strings attached, because
Awesome.
the decision-making process ends with my wife and I, period. That's it. And then the other thing too, before we started this, I told my wife, I'll do it, but every bit of this money goes to help those that need the help. You know, there's no admin fees or anything like that. And the way it came about, my wife went in for back surgery, and they wouldn't allow us to do the surgery because her VA benefits wouldn't cover the surgery.
Oh.
So imagine this, you know, here's a young soldier. Let's say that you're a E4, E5. You go in to get surgery and they say, we're not going to do it because the VA is not going to pay for this. And then guess what they do? They hand them a prescription drug, oxycodone, and they tell them to go home and take these. So my wife took that for a week. She took it for 7 days, and it took her 2 months to get like back to be herself.
Yeah.
So think about this.
With you.
Yeah, man, think about this GI that goes in there, some young kid that's hurt his back on a jump or whatever, and they give him that. Now he's addicted to that. He can't get off of that. So, you know, when we were lucky because I went down and got a checkbook, I wrote a check for her surgery that day. And I was very thankful because when I got out of the military, we couldn't have done that. And I'm not bragging. I'm definitely not bragging. I'm just saying that's the fact. When I got out of the Army, we didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out. We just didn't have a lot of money. We still don't have a lot of money, but at least we had enough that I could write a check to pay for that surgery. And then they came back and they said, well, she should have got acupuncture for 6 months. So then we said, well, acupuncture, when did that become a legit thing? Anyway, long story short, it took us about 10 months. We finally got reimbursed. I went in to get acupuncture, which I've never done before, and I was having some arm issues. I went in for acupuncture and I tried to claim it with the VA, and they said, we don't pay for acupuncture. And I'm like, wait a minute. A year ago, you said my wife should have had acupuncture, but you know what I mean? It's like this self-licking ice cream cone.
Right.
So it's, you got to get in there and fight for it. And like I said, the VA is awesome, but sometimes the VA is not so awesome. So you got to have a plan. And if you have issues, reach out to us, reach out to Warrior's Heart. There's a lot of organizations that can help people out. I'm sure you know a bunch of them.
Yeah. And I think, well, you touched on a topic that I have a lot of passion for, which is, you know, the PTSD thing. And, you know, it's finally become something that's a little bit more accepted, I think, just in the world, but, you know, more so in the military world, for people, where before it was such a hush-hush thing and no one wanted to admit, or they had something going on or didn't know what it was that was going on. And so it's pleasing to me to hear that you're part of that group that helps with that. And I've met so many other organizations and people that are helping in different ways to, you know, overcome some of the PTSD issues. And it's really, really cool. I think there's a lot of help that's needed there. And a lot of these guys, you know, it's, you know, stuff going on in your brain and you can't fix it on your own. And, you know, the oxycodone and, you know, which leads to other stuff, it just, you know, that starts to destruct your life. And that's not worth it. Right. So yeah, that's really great. And thank you for doing that.
Yeah. And I think if guys and gals will just reach out both ways. If you're having trouble, just tell somebody. Just let us know what's going on. We'll try to help. Now, like I said, we can't save everybody. I mean, we're going to do the best we can, but we also, if you're one of those people that are helping folks, just if something bad happens, there are some people you can't save. The other side of that is if you're the person that needs the help, we're here. All you got to do is turn left or right and just say, I need help, and we will help you. That doesn't mean I'm going to come and pay your rent or I'm going to come and do your job for you. No, I'm going to help you get through this tough time, because we all struggle with that. You know, we've all lost friends, whether you lost friends when you were actually serving or you've lost friends that have been killed in combat, you know, since then or whatever. And it's normal to think about those guys. It's normal to be ultra vigilant. That's what we've been taught to do by the military. So don't think that's bad. But if you're feeling like you're struggling, like I said, look left and right. You're surrounded by military people in America. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting some veteran. I mean, we're everywhere. So just reach out. We'll help you any way we can.
That's awesome. Well, Kyle, I really appreciate you being on the show today and taking out some time to share this great stories and just all the neat stuff that you're doing. It was really fun, and it's great to learn a little bit more about you and your past. And for anybody that wants to connect with Kyle or any of the endeavors that he's involved in from the nonprofit stuff or whatever, go ahead and reach out to either of us, and you can reach me at valoanguy.us. But Kyle, thanks so much. Thank you to our audience for listening and watching today. We appreciate you and look forward to showing you our next episode of the Armed and Ready podcast. Take care.
All right, thank you so much. God bless America.
Yes, sir.
Thanks so much for checking into the podcast today. Please like and subscribe below. If you would like more information about anything we covered today, please visit me at valoanguy.us. Thanks. We'll check you next time.